Hi, everybody. We are live. Hi, I'm Rebecca. I am one of Dr. Ken Berry's PhD coaches, certified primal health coach. Been in the ketogenic space for a few years now. And I am with Siobhan Huggins, and we're going to be talking about ketones today.
Yeah, and I'm Siobhan. I do a bunch of different things. I volunteer at the Lipedema Project. I have my own company with Dave Feldman, Own Your Labs, and then I also do experimentation, and I talk about it sometimes.
And that's what we're going to be doing today because we have both been sort of experimenting. Well, I'm going to say that I sort of have been experimenting with ketones. My daughter has been. So I'm just overseeing it. So, yeah. So let's talk about really sort of what are ketones?
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to answer that, that's fine too. Like why are they important? What is this?
Yeah, so the quick explanation is typically when people talk about ketones, at least in our context here in this conversation, we're mostly talking about beta hydroxybutyrate, which is a very long word, but we can just call it BHB or ketones or whatever. Ketones are produced by your liver as a byproduct of burning fat. So the whole reason it's called a ketogenic diet, which both of us are on, is because it produces ketones by the body. But important to this context is there are also precursors or straight ketones that you can also
Mm-hmm.
consume to bring up your levels, or things like MCT or coconut oil. But the reason that you would want to do that is there's more and more research coming out that ketones may be really beneficial for a lot of conditions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there have been recent studies looking at ketogenic diets generally on a whole bunch of different stuff, type 1 diabetes, where ketones can be used by the brain in the case of like a hypoglycemic episode, for example. So
Mm-hmm.
we have studies on the powerful effect of ketones even with very low glucose. Um,
I
and
mean,
then,
one of the first studies that ever did that was back in the early 1900s, wasn't it?
yeah,
And it was like
yeah.
it's like they fasted people and then they tanked them with a bunch of insulin, got them down into
Mm-hmm.
the 20s, which is critically low, guys, and they had no reaction. Like there was no signs of low sugar, no hypoglycemia, and it was which is
Yeah, and
spectacular.
importantly, originally they had those same people non-fasted, and these were not superhumans impervious to hypoglycemia. They had normal hypoglycemic reactions originally, but then after having fasted, getting into this ketogenic state, then they were completely fine by all accounts. Don't think you could get away with doing that study today. I think the IRB would have some issues with that. But
Yeah.
for people with type 1 diabetes, if there's a misdose or something happens, having that extra buffer can be useful so that they have time to bring their glucose levels back up.
Mhm.
But we're also seeing more and more things in terms of bipolar disorder,
Mhm.
depression. Ian Campbell has done a lot of work on bipolar disorder and ketones potentially helping with that. So there's a wide range of things. Through my work with the Lipedema Project, we did a group experiment
Mhm.
where we played around with exogenous ketones. So we used bioidenticals from
Mhm.
American Ketone in that context.
Mhm.
And we found that it really helped with their pain levels. And some experienced less swelling. And
That's
so
phenomenal.
we have no idea the full extent of what it does, but we know it does a lot of stuff in terms of inflammatory regulation as an
Yep.
energy source, especially for the brain. Um,
Well, they're even
Signaling like a
yeah,
gajillion different things.
yeah. Well, I mean, like it's even shown that people like using I think it's a study. I'd have to go and like dig it up, but it was like during a heart attack, people who had ketones, like were given ketones, did better and their heart actually had way less damage than
Mm,
somebody who just went through the heart attack and the normal, return of blood flow to the heart. Like the fact that they had ketones on board actually mitigated some of that damage. And I think that that's something that's super important that we need to be looking at.
Yeah, we can also see that with heart failure. And then Verta stuff more recently, one of their more recent publications was looking at chronic kidney disease. And the level of improvement was correlating with the ketone level of the people in their cohort. So they don't have a control, anything like that. But again, it seems like organs that are having trouble, whether it be the brain or the heart or the kidneys or whatever it is, it seems like they can use ketones even when they're in that damaged state. So who knows how much else it applies to, but.
Well, and the newest one that really I saw Nick Norwitz put out on his, not only his Substack, but because I follow that too, but his YouTube channel talking about Alzheimer's and how it helps with the protein misfolding in the brain, and that makes up these amyloid plaques. It's super fascinating. I think we're at a really cool place in science and the ketogenic community right now, because there's so many people starting to kind of get interested, and it's becoming more mainstream.
Yeah, and we have so much evidence of this point as ketogenic diets, as therapeutic diets, for a range of conditions like we just talked about. Another super recent example from just this year is there was a study on people with lymphedema, so a lymphatic disorder. They don't have proper lymphatic function. It can cause swelling, fibrosis of wherever they're impacted, all this stuff. They put them on a ketogenic diet, and they looked at, I think it was after 6 months, but before and after lymphatic imaging. And after the 6 months, many of them had evidence of new lymphatic vessel regrowth.
That blows my mind. And that's like,
the cool thing too is that they looked at their ketone levels throughout. So this is from diet. But they found that lymphatic vessel regrowth was correlating with BHB levels. So it was a small study, needs to be replicated. We need to see if that's true. Does the level of it matter? But for some cases in some disease, it might be that the deeper ketosis is really helpful because it's a powerful signaling molecule. We had evidence in mice, by the way, that ketones signal for new lymph vessel growth. We didn't know if it was true in humans, but this is possibly evidence that actually does happen in humans. To what extent, we don't know. But
well, I wonder, and this is speculation, and I've heard of this, excuse me, that there was somebody else that had a CT angiogram of the heart done on the ketogenic diet, and they had a blockage, but they found that the heart had rerouted.
Yes, so that can happen. Yeah,
and I'm just wondering how much role does a ketogenic diet play in that also?
That would be an interesting study in itself. I think the lean mass hyperresponder study may open a lot of doors depending on what the results are, and then maybe we could edge out a little bit further, because currently it is a little bit difficult with higher risk populations, especially stuff like heart disease, in terms of ketogenic diets. But like, this is the exciting thing, is like what you talked about. We're at this huge renaissance of ketogenic diet study. Like, and granted, like, ketogenic diets have been used for a long time. Epilepsy and diabetes.
We're talking 1800s. It was in the medical literature, like,
yes,
for people who had diabetes back in England. Like, it was there.
I have Gary Taub's book right up on my bookshelf, Rethinking Diabetes, where he talks about the history of diabetes, and low carb and ketogenic diets, all meat diets are talked about there. So this is not a new thing, and we're still at a point where a lot of people are like, okay, it's just a fad, whatever. But that's why the science is so important, not just to say like, oh, I was right all along, blah blah blah.
Exactly.
But that we're actually basing this on the scientific evidence. We're not just saying it cures everything all over the place. It will not regrow limbs. I can pretty much guarantee that. If your organs are gone, they probably won't come back. But it does seem very helpful for a lot of things, at least. And the science is backing that up.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think Dr. Anthony Chafee, now he's a, carnivore. but they have not studies, but they have anecdotes that it is removing plaques from the brain or lesions from the brain for MS patients. So I mean, I think that we're going to find that the applications are huge.
I think so too.
So with that, I want to kind of get into what we've been doing and talk about it. And you can go ahead and go first and tell us, what have you been doing with your experiments with ketones? Because I know we both been using the same company. We're both using Original Ketone by American Ketone, which are one of the only bioidenticals. And this is the only one that I've seen that is legit, like, what's it, like, guaranteed bioidentical. And I think that that's important, that it's not a precursor. It's not using MCT oil. It's an actual beta hydroxybutyric acid, like the ketone that is in our body.
Yeah. So for some context, for people who don't know about my situation, a few years ago, I was diagnosed with lipedema, which is not the same as lymphedema, but it is a fat and lymphatic disorder. So it can also come with swelling and fat gain, typically in the lower body. I also have it in the arms and lower abdomen, all over the place, because why not? And then that fat can also scar over. So then it becomes very difficult to get rid of. And even the stuff that isn't scarred is very, very, very stubborn, which I have experienced. And then I also have a history of mood issues that I use a ketogenic diet for. And that is one of the differences that I've noted. And then sometimes I also cheat, and before a presentation or a podcast interview, I take ketones as a cognitive boost to be on my best game.
I did it for tests.
I took a Japanese language proficiency test, one of the lower level ones, but it's a 3-hour long test, and I was like, I'm just taking ketones beforehand. I need as much help as I can get. It was very intense.
The same, right before like a patho test, or right before taking pharmacology tests, I was like, and an hour before, ketones.
Yes.
You know, so and yeah, it really does work. So what's your experiments going on right now with them?
Yeah, so I was curious about it because I had heard someone else talk about ketone fasting, where instead of water fasting or fat fasting, which is what I usually do, they do a water fast with added ketones. And I had done fat fasting before, and I do really well with it, feel good, all that good stuff. So I was curious to see if I would get the same effects from a ketone fast. In terms of like what I was hoping to do, my main thing was I just wanted to get swelling down. So I tend to swell in my legs. I can swell into my abdomen. It's uncomfortable. It's not good for my body for that to happen. And so I decided to try this. I was also curious if with some fasting I could get fat down, particularly in areas with lipedema. I wasn't really convinced that it would happen, but I was open to the idea, at least enough to check with body composition scans and stuff like that. And so that's largely what I was doing it for. So the protocol is it's changed a little bit over the months because I started at the beginning of October, but essentially it's 48 hours of ketone fasting. And then at this point, I'm doing a 36-hour refeed. So I'll have a meal in the evening, and then I'll have 2 meals the following day, and then I'll go back to fasting. And just that over and over and over and over and over again. So very cyclical. And I've had some interesting results. So I've definitely gone down in swelling. So I've been doing in-body scans, which is a type of body composition scan. It's just electrical signals, what'll tell you the water and the fat and the bone and all that stuff.
Is that the one that you can do at like a physical therapist's place? Yep. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
And as long as you're doing them in the same context, so after you've gone to the bathroom, before eating or drinking anything, they're pretty comparable to DEXAs, which is why I like them, and I don't have to worry about like radiation or anything doing them super frequently. So definitely swelling went down because I lost something like I think 5 pounds of water or something like that. I would have to double check. Which is a fair amount. It might even be more than that. I should have looked it up before. But in any case, the body water went down over the course of several weeks. And then I have the things on my phone, so I'm peeking at them.
No, you're good. I'm not offended. It takes a whole lot to offend me.
Yeah.
Until it comes to my daughter, then it takes very, very little. And I protect her like a savage mama bear.
Yeah, so I just double checked. It's about 6 pounds of water that I've lost. And I got sick a few weeks ago. And so I took a break from all the fasting and stuff. And I did gain a little bit of water weight, but it came off very quickly once I was better. So even taking a break from the fasting, that water is staying off, which I'm really excited about.
That's amazing.
Yes. So much less swelling. And before I got sick, I did start losing fat in my legs. It was like a tiny amount. It was like 1/3 of a pound. And then I gained fat when I got sick, which made me sad. But it was starting to make a difference, which is really interesting. And I think for me, this is going to be a longer term thing because lipedema is so stubborn, because it takes so long, because small upsets can make my body go nuts, basically. But seeing any amount of change is super cool to me. Yeah. Like this is an experiment. So stuff is going to come in and I'll learn from that and get back on.
Yeah.
But the unexpected effect that it had is once a week, I meet up with my fasting buddy and we talk about how we're doing and all this stuff. And my mood was so much better, like very, not hyper, but more energetic than I usually am, very optimistic, like just feeling light, like just happy. And like I've had some health issues over the past few years, mostly related to lipedema, but some of that has come down a little bit from where I was originally. The big issue, I think, was the high carb experiment. And I've had trouble recovering from that ever since. And that was 5 years ago at this point.
So will you ever go back to a high carb experiment? Just for the record.
I don't think so. So the problem is that I have a bunch of conditions. Like I do know people who have been on a ketogenic diet long term, and they improved their health enough to where they could reintroduce carbs and go low carb or moderate carb, sometimes even higher carb, and they're perfectly fine. But I haven't had that experience. Like my health has improved, but like anytime I add carbs back, it just doesn't work for me. So
yeah, I haven't gone on that one yet. And I've talked to, actually just interviewed Rob Goodwin, carnivore bodybuilder, last evening. And I'm still editing that video. But, we talked about like some people can do that and reintroduce carbs, and they use it in bodybuilding for women around their cycle sometimes. And it helps sometimes. So,
and like Meathead on X Twitter, they did the honey diet thing and worked perfectly well for them. They felt really great, full of energy. And yeah, I wish that were my case. Not because I particularly like carbs, but just because it would mean I wouldn't have to be so careful, like when traveling and stuff. But that's just not my reality, unfortunately.
Yeah, agreed. I haven't tried it yet. I'm actually a little scared because I've been so strict since 2018. Like he's like, have some rice. I'm like,
I mean, rice isn't the worst option.
No,
I would say starches and stuff are something I would be more comfortable with rather than fructose. But
yes.
fructose, Leslin keyed me into a mouse study, granted, but fructose may have some impacts on the lymphatic system in particular, and having
Ooh,
a
okay.
lymphatic disorder, not
Probably
as
not a
comfortable
good,
with it.
not as
Yeah.
understand. So, were you testing your ketones at all when you were doing this?
Yes. I try to test my ketones every morning and then again in the afternoon.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's only the morning, sometimes it's only the afternoon, just because I'm not perfect. um, but
Go
what's cool,
figure. You're human. I
who
mean, whoa.
knew? But before, so it's very interesting. There's up until I got sick and then after I got sick, um, which has happened to me before, actually. So I guess that's not too surprising. But before I got sick, an interesting thing was happening where my ketones were going higher and higher. My GKA was dropping lower and lower down to like a 1. So, like, deep
Therapeutic.
therapeutic
Good.
ketosis.
Yeah.
And I was feeling awesome. My ketones were like 4 millimoles. I was like, this is great. I feel amazing. And what's interesting is that what started happening is that it started carrying over into the non-fasting days. So I would only be having the bioidentical BHB during fasting days. So over that 48 hours, like 10 grams per day. Sometimes
Okay.
I wouldn't take any on the second day, felt fine, didn't need it. But those high ketones and that low GKI was starting to carry over to my refeeding period. So I was in this deep GKI um, for like ever. And since I've gotten sick, my ketones have dropped. So they're more around like 1.5 to 2, even when fasting, usually around 3 in the evening. So I got sick a few weeks ago. I think I've just been overly stressed out and it's going to take a little while to get back to
To
there.
get back.
That's
Yeah.
fine. But I found that I didn't expect that to happen at all. That is super interesting to me.
So what's your hypothesis then on what's causing that? Because I mean, so you're introducing an exogenous ketones. So
Mm-hmm.
for okay, so there's a theory out there. Let me back up just a little bit. So there's a theory out there that if you take exogenous ketones, you won't make your own ketones.
Well,
And
disproven right there. Like
I know,
that
well,
because these, as far as I'm aware, they only last in the system for I think a few hours.
mhm.
Um, and definitely not past 24 hours. I don't think that's possible. But if I was maintaining high ketones for up to 36 to 48 hours afterwards, they had to have been
Been
mine.
gone. Yeah.
So, yeah, so they had
Because
to
these are
be my
bioidenticals.
ketones. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because I think people like so there are multiple different kinds of ketones out there, products on the market. So I'm going to delineate kind of what they are. You have ketone salts, which is ketones that are bound to salts. They are less they're less available. They don't last as long, and they give you the poops. Just sorry, I'm in Dr. Barry's community. It's got to come up at some point in time, every time. So some people are laughing in the comments, I'm sure. So yeah, so you can get diarrhea from those.
Mm.
Then you have the ketone precursors, and the most common one of that is the ketone alcohols. So that's
Mm-hmm.
like the butanidol. I can't even say it right. Um,
Yeah, something like that.
it's like some big like 1,3 beta something. It's this big long and it's got idol at the end of it. And so that's a ketone alcohol and it's a precursor. It goes to the liver converts it into bioidentical. Um, and they have a moderately decent effect. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that they don't work. They can work, but there is a little bit of backdoor talk that there's a possibility that they might have a detrimental effect on the liver because the liver has to work hard to convert them. I
Mm.
haven't seen any scientific evidence on that. That's just whispers that I've heard from people. Um, and then you have the bioidenticals, and there's a couple products on the market that claim to be bioidentical, but I think truly there's really only one that has been proven to be very bioidentical, and that's the American ketone, and that's the one that we've been using.
Yeah.
Um,
And in terms of like why the carryover effect, so the way that I started to think about it is almost like priming the pump, like sending the signal that there is a lot of energy available. Because if you think about it, like the only way you can typically get high ketones,
Is to
assuming
fast a long time.
to fast a long time or to eat an extremely high fat diet. But in either case, the ketones are coming from fat burning, right? So they're essentially a signal of a high fat energy state. So I wonder if, I don't know if this is true, I'm making things up, but if you have high ketones, it may signal that, oh, the only way we could get these is if we have a lot of energy. So let's ramp up our fat burning and let's continue this. And then it sort of primes the pump for your own fat burning and thus ketone production. I don't know. Like, that's the only thing I can think of so far because I don't know.
I feel like that's, I can see that. I don't know the mechanism behind it, but I'm
neither.
smart, but
No
I'm
idea.
not, I'm just not in that realm.
Yeah, this is the cool thing about experiments is we figure stuff out and like observe weird things and we just say, I have no clue why that's going on. No idea. I have some maybe like sparse thoughts on, I would guess it's a signaling thing, but what type of signaling thing specifically?
Like
no idea.
the signaling pathway. I mean, I don't know. Maybe one of these days I'll get Nick Norwitz on my channel and like say, do you have any ideas? Because you're the metabolism guru that knows more about this than anybody else I know. So what we've been doing, and I'll touch kind of on what we've been doing with Audrey. So my daughter, high functioning autism, ADHD, and OCD. So with OCD comes extreme anxiety. There's this this obsession, the obsessive thoughts, then there's this compulsion, and the goal is to fight the compulsion. And fighting the compulsion, that compulsion brings like a huge amount of anxiety. So what we've been trying to see is if ketones can mitigate that, because her ADHD is great. Ketogenic diets have been doing like just amazing things, you know, for that. And so we had talked to American Ketone about this, about the bioidenticals, to see if these would be a better fit. And it's interesting because I have pitted them against some of the other products, and ketone salts did nothing.
Yeah, I tried ketone salts for 1 week because I was curious, like, is American Ketone just super great for this context, or is it just ketones in general? Because I hadn't done ketone fasting before. So I did a week of same protocol, ketone fasting, taking ketone salts, and I've had good experiences with ketone salts in the past of mainly trying to maintain the levels that I already have. But for this fasting, I find specifically it works much better and I feel much better if my ketones are actually going up beyond my normal level. And the ketone salts didn't do anything. And a big reason that I take ketones during fasting is like with the American Ketone bioidenticals, within like 5 minutes of drinking them, hunger is gone, completely gone, which makes sense because you're supplying energy. So hunger problem resolved. But with the ketone salts, even waiting for hours and hours.
Yeah, because it's a very slow rise. It takes forever.
And it didn't take any of the hunger edge off at all. And it got to a point where it was so uncomfortable. Originally, I had intended to do the ketone salts for 2 weeks with the fasting because I wanted to have a good run in. It was so miserable and so uncomfortable. And I was so hungry that I just quit after a week. So there's definitely a difference, at least for me, in what the form of the ketone is. And the bioidenticals seem to be the most helpful at this point.
Yeah. So, yes, Terry, we'll put that. I think it might be in the description. If you look, Terry, there should be a link in the description for American Ketone. So with Audrey, so what we do is every morning she, on a school day. So we treat this almost like ADHD medication where she takes breaks on the weekends.
Oh, cool.
So, and we only, now she takes a half of an adult dose. So you're taking the 10 grams.
Yep.
So that's 2 ounces. I'm giving her 5 grams.
10 grams is this much. So Audrey's taking this much.
Yeah. So very, very, very little. And she takes that in the morning at about between 7 and 7:15. And we gauge how she's doing by the text messages I'm getting. And the tone, I should say also the tone of the text messages. And then I ask her, you know, how was your anxiety? So we've done that with the precursors too. There's a really popular company that that's out there, and it's an alcohol. It tastes like jet fuel, but it does. It works okay for me, but when I gave it to Audrey, it didn't last as long, and I started getting the very anxious text. And like having issues, but like some days she'll go without texting me anything other than "Mom, I'm bored. Do you want to
Always
chat?"
good to hear from a teenager.
Yeah, I'm bored. You know, do you want to chat? Because we're not doing anything in class right now, and so we'll sit there and chat. But sometimes it's like, "Mom, my OCD," and this right here, this is what I'm using. This with my daughter is for her anxiety, for her OCD. So the anxiety that comes along with fighting her compulsions. And it's been pretty remarkable. The only thing is it does wear off. I do not test her ketones, and I'll tell you why. We are not looking for a number. We're looking for a feeling, which I know that sounds kind of hokey.
I mean, but what you're looking for is improved quality of life, which is not a number on a scale or a meter or anything like that. It's her actual experience out in the world.
Yeah. And it is working. Dina, because yours is 24 years old. See, I'm giving my daughter a half a dose because she's 17. And that works. I haven't tried giving her a full one yet. I mean, maybe I'll try it sometime, see what happens. Or giving it to her twice in one day, maybe 5 and then 5. And we did try giving it to her at night, and, you know, switching it up to see if it helped at night. It did not. Like she just didn't respond that way. She didn't sleep any better. In fact, I think she had worse sleep. So she's one of those weirdos that it needs to be in the morning, and you know, and that's fine too. But it has helped, and she feels like it's helping. And then I can tell if we give her the precursors, it is not as effective. And you know,
and that's the thing is, I don't think the precursors or the salts are bad. It's just in this specific context, it's not having the effect that either of us are looking for. So the way that I kind of think about it is just all the different forms are different tools, and some things are going to be more suitable for some things than others. Like the salts, if I just want to maintain my levels when I'm traveling, when food is a little bit more sketchy, they're perfectly fine for that. The bioidenticals I'm finding are just have an interesting use case that I haven't seen from anything else.
Yeah. Somebody's asking if it's the bioavailable ones are similar to bulletproof brain octane. I don't think so. I think, isn't that like MCT oil?
I think it's MCT. Yeah.
Yeah. So MCT oil would be sort of a precursor in a way, because MCT oil is treated by the body. It goes straight to the liver and converted into ketones. So your liver is just sort of, you know, making it. Yeah. And then the bioavailable is literally like
you're drinking it and it immediately enters the system.
Yeah. It's like the beta hydroxybutyrate that is in your blood when you make them yourselves. You are taking a shot of those. Actually, you're not taking a shot. You're mixing it because it's concentrated. Don't take a shot of it. If you buy this stuff, guys,
That would hurt your stomach.
Yeah. And by the way, we are not like sponsored by them. This is just a company that we've worked with to, because we like their product.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Neither of us get any money if you buy their product.
Nope.
I don't have an affiliate code. I don't know if you do,
No,
but
I have no affiliate code. I like their product, and for my daughter, they are expensive, but all ketones are expensive. I will say this. If you take 5 grams, like for Audrey's, it's the same price as like Ketone IQ.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, because I have it. The bioidenticals are way more expensive. They're about the same price as if you bought Dr. Boz's. She says hers are bioidentical. I don't know if it is her pucker up stuff. I don't know what's in it, but it's about the same price if you buy those.
Yeah, and part of the reason is they are a small company. So with any small company,
very tiny.
It's an issue of scale. It's easier to make things cheaper when you can scale much higher. Mm-hmm. Like I know Carnivore Bar, for example, had talked about that in the early days of why they were more expensive. It's because they're a small company. So same reasoning.
Yeah. So I don't know, where's that? Hide the current comment. I'm like, sorry guys, I really suck at these little banner thingies. But yeah, so that's sort of what we've been doing. I like how Phyllis was like, her functional medicine doctor told her that being in ketosis all the time is not good. I mean, your body is not always in ketosis. You just happen to catch it testing your blood when it is in ketosis, because you're probably going out early morning. Like a lot of people.
I think it depends on the person.
Fair.
Like I've tested immediately upon waking, and depending on what I'm doing, I could be 2 or 3 millimoles, sometimes 4 millimoles, even super early in the morning. Just depends on what your metabolism is doing. But
so that would be great. I wake up in the morning, it's like 0.4. I'm like,
yeah, your lowest levels tend to be in the morning, and then your highest levels tend to be between 3 to 5 p.m.
Yes. I thought it was 4 to 6, but it might
somewhere in the evening.
It might be. I don't know. I remember Isabella Cooper talking about, like, if you really want to know how you're doing, test it in the afternoon, because that's when
in the afternoon generally is safe to say. And I've seen people with the continuous ketone monitors that are not available in the US yet. But they do show that same thing where it's lowest in the morning and then highest in the evening. It's just a circadian rhythm thing for whatever reason.
Yep. I think it has to do with the cortisol rise and insulin of the morning, because insulin blocks the production of ketones.
Yeah.
So I think that's mine. Dina has another question. What are the non-bio ones made up of?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know the full details of that. I know it's a precursor that your liver will convert into ketones, but I don't know of the specifics of it.
Is that the same with the salts?
I think so. I think both the alcohols and the salts are converted in the liver, but I don't know exactly what they are. I'm not like a ketone scientist, just by the way. I just take them.
Yeah, me either. We take them. And
I take them and I make them, but that's it.
Well, and I get flack for it. Like, why do you need it? Can't you do it with diet? No, there are some people, and I kind of want to talk about that. And that kind of, that's a good segue. Too. Let's talk about, like, who needs this, because not everybody needs to take exogenous ketones. Our bodies absolutely do make them. Most people in the world do just fine making their own. So why and who and why? Yeah.
So I think the grand filter would be, have you tried a ketogenic diet yet? So there are lots of people. I even know one person who suffered from OCD, who went on a ketogenic diet. OCD went in complete remission. She's doing great. She's super healthy, metabolically, feels awesome. Doesn't really have any lingering issues. And it's like, okay, well, you probably don't need them.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, and then same with pretty much every condition under the sun you can think of. So mostly the way that I think about them is is there something you're trying to achieve that hasn't been achieved through diet? Or like we saw with lipedema, let's say someone wants to try a ketogenic diet, but they're looking for pain relief right now. The pain relief from a diet may take up to 2 weeks, which isn't a long time, but if you're in excruciating pain, that actually is a long time. So we do have some women in the community who take exogenous ketones during that 2-week period and then come off of them once they've adapted to the diet and they have pain relief from that. So like for me, I've been on a ketogenic diet for 8 years. I've had periods where my ketones are between 2 and 4 millimoles naturally. But even so, when I take the bioidenticals, I find that I do feel better. For me, it makes fasting easier, and I'm getting the benefits of water fasting without being hungry all the time, without suffering with fatigue, without my sleep becoming disrupted. So I have specific use cases where this is helpful. I'm also interested in exploring deep GKI for lipedema specifically. There hasn't been really studies on it, but I can do my own N of 1 study if I want. And so I'm exploring that. So I have health conditions, and then I also have time periods where I want a bit of a cognitive boost. Like I mentioned, before presentations, before podcast interviews or live streams like this one, or tests. If I'm taking a test, then I'll take some. Earlier, like a couple of years ago, I would also have some issues where storms would come through and it would mess with my mood. I would take ketones then, and I found that they were helpful. So I would say, like, is there some thing that you think it would be beneficial? And I would say not instead of diet, but in tandem with diet or leading into larger nutritional changes, or on top of.
Yeah, I was going to say, I want to caveat this. Like, I do not recommend people who are not on a ketogenic diet to go out and take exogenous ketones unless they have something like Parkinson's disease and you can't get them to change diets, or Alzheimer's and you can't get them to change diets. In those cases, then MCT oil or using bioidenticals, I think, would be beneficial.
Yeah. In that case, I have heard of people using things like MCT or exogenous ketones until they're a little bit cognitively better and more willing to make lifestyle change. So even then, it's an on-ramp.
Yeah, exactly. We did have a couple of questions, and I don't want to miss them.
Yeah.
Carno Dane says, is it best to weight train with ketones? I'm scared to death to start lifting weights due to the high cholesterol. I mean, I lift weights with ketones. There's been times I use ketones as a pre-workout.
Yeah. I have not tried ketones as a pre-workout, but that would be very interesting. In terms of the cholesterol, I mean, resistance training, from the experiments that Dave Heldman has done and observations in resistance training communities, resistance training is one of the factors that can decrease cholesterol, presumably because it's being taken up by the muscle and used for repair, stuff like that. That's speculation. I haven't seen that proven that that's what's happening, but that's my assumption. But yeah, the cholesterol question is ever present, right? And I'm glad we have the lean mass hyperresponder study so we can get some beginnings of answers.
I'm excited for that one. And nervous. Let's see. And he says, is the higher the ketone, the better? I think that depends also. That's also in context.
Yeah, so, it depends.
Like if you are a type 1 diabetic, the higher is not the better. Because especially if you're not controlled, because then you're in DKA most likely, and then that's a whole other ball game. But if you're just on a ketogenic diet, the higher the better. I wouldn't go past 5. I wouldn't go past 5. If you're going past 5, I think depending,
6.
Really, you've gotten up that high.
Yeah, from fat fasting specifically. I got up to 6.
Fat. Yeah, I haven't tried fat fasting though. I've not been past 4. And I don't feel good at 4. Like you were like, I feel so great. I did not.
I think that is one thing I would look at. For one, what is your glucose? Because if your glucose is simultaneously higher with a 6, I would be like, oh no, it's time to like bring that down.
Yeah.
But for me, my glucose was like in the 50s, and then my ketones were up at 6, and it was in the evening, so it was my higher read for the day, and I felt completely normal.
Yeah, as long as you're feeling good, and I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah, but higher being better, it just depends. I know people who feel fantastic at like 0.7. It really just depends on what you're dealing with and if the condition is responsive to deeper ketosis. And that may not be all conditions. I don't know.
Yeah. This is a good one. Joyce asks, will taking BHB during a fast break it? There you go. This is all you.
Yeah, I would think not, because, I mean, I guess it depends, because there's so many definitions of fasting. So it depends on your goals, I guess. If your goal is to consume nothing, then yes, it would break your fast because you just consumed something that has energy in it. But if your goal is to maintain deep ketosis, to maintain a metabolic state of promoting autophagy, decreasing mTOR, increasing AMPK, then I would go with probably not, because all you're doing is sending a signal that you are in a very deeply ketogenic state, which is not contradictory with fasting, but up for interpretation, I guess.
That is fair. Well, I think too, you got to, how much is the calories? Because in oxidative priority, it's alcohol, then exogenous ketones. And I think that they have a similar calorie count, if you believe in calories, which
46 calories. But the thing is, calories don't always, like, it depends on the metabolic effect, because Amber O'Hearn has mentioned studies in which fat fasting increased, I think, metabolic rate compared to water fasting, which would mean that even though you ingested calories, you're increasing your expenditure at the same time because of the signal you're sending. So it's complicated.
I haven't fat fasted. We might have to get together and have you walk me through a fat fast sometime.
Yeah. I would say I like the ketone fasting better, if only because it's more convenient, because with the fat fasting, I would have to make like a hot cocoa or like a coffee with butter in it. And with this, I can just pour it in water and be lazy.
And be lazy. Can we train our bodies to produce more? I want to be in high therapeutic ketosis for depression and anxiety, but currently have to take exogenous or extended fast. So I think you sort of answered that a little bit, that it's possible that if you did the bioidenticals, which is sort of might be telling your liver, hey, produce more, produce more, produce more. We need this amount of abundant energy.
Yeah, I would also say there's a couple other components to it. In large part, what you're eating. So for me, if I'm not taking ketones, in order to get into high therapeutic ketosis, so let's say that's between 3 and 4 millimoles in the morning. It depends a lot on what I eat. So it has to be close to zero carb for me, which I don't mind, luckily. Very high fats, around 80 to 85% fat, and then moderate protein, around 1.2 grams per kilo of lean or ideal body weight. So moderate protein, very high fat, and then extremely low carb. Dairy will often bring down my ketones because I have issues with it, probably. So that's a component for some people. But there are a couple protocols that are specifically aimed at it without calorie restriction, so it's more sustainable over long term. So Keto AF, which was coined by Amber O'Hearn, stands for Keto Animal Foods, is a...
Sorry, that is not.
It's not what comes to mind, but that's part of the joke.
What came to mind.
But it's a high-fat carnivore protocol where it outlines kind of a lot of what's the minimum protein that you should go near, like preferably not at the minimum, but what point do you not go below, while still promoting this deeper ketosis. Some tips and tricks to how to go about it, things like that. So
Okay.
I would say that protocol has been the most effective for me for therapeutic ketosis, but it's not the only one. Like, I'm sure there are alternatives.
And
Lots of
you said that was what? Like the what keto AF?
keto AF. Amber has posted about it. There's actually a Facebook group for it.
Okay.
Keto Animal Foods, Keto AF, I think is the title.
I'll go look it. I'll go look it up.
Yeah,
So the numbers we're talking about, are they from meters? Yes, they're from meters.
yeah.
The Keto Mojo
Keto
has been the
Mojo
best.
is what I use.
FYI, Keto Mojo, great brand. They absolutely were amazing. Something broke inside my meter, and like the strip wouldn't, like I could stick the strip all the way down inside the meter and it like just go in. And I sent them a video of it, and they totally upheld their lifetime warranty and sent me one. So kudos to Keto Mojo for being freaking awesome.
Yeah, they have very good customer service, which I always appreciate. One other thing about, what was the previous question? I had it in my head and I lost it.
About training, or no, which ones are the best ones?
Yeah, which ones are the best ones? I will say I have tried some like random brands that were at various conferences, and I have had weird effects from some of them. I don't know if it was the flavoring or the sweetener that they used or the formulation or whatever it was. So if you are someone who has a history of like mood issues or anything like that, I would just be careful. And if you are going to try a different brand, try to have like a check-in buddy with you just so you can.
Yeah, because a lot of this stuff is not regulated, guys, and because it is considered a nutritional supplement. So, and I've heard some scary stories from people too.
Yeah. So try to go with brands that have efficacy and safety studies. So that's another reason why I like American Ketones Bioidenticals, is they have a paper on their website, safety and efficacy. I always appreciate that. And transparency from the company on what kind of testing that they do, how do they verify it is what they say it is, all that type of stuff.
So this one is going to be for you because you fast more than I do. Has anyone lost weight on a fast when supplementing with BHB?
Yes, I did. So like I mentioned, I did lose a bunch of water weight. That is, I have a condition that makes me swell, so that was good. And then I did lose fat as well, and I lost overall weight and maintained my muscle mass, which I appreciated. So
that's a good thing right there. Is maintaining your muscle mass.
Yeah. So my body composition improved along with weight loss. And that was one thing I was really curious about, is with all this fasting, because I'm basically fasting for half the week, essentially, of am I going to start losing muscle mass? I'm 2 months in at this point. I've only taken like one break throughout that when I got sick. But my muscle mass is the same as it was when I started, approximately. But my body composition has improved at the same time. So can't guarantee that'll be the same for everybody. You'd have to try it. But I would say if you're curious about it, do body composition scan at the beginning, and then after a while of the protocol, just do another check-in and see.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Do the body composition scans are much better. And one thing, I think, and Dr. Berry has said this, like, hey, those scales that say that they measure your body fat are not as accurate as what they claim to be. I'm talking like the bathroom scales.
Yeah, I would say like try to find a place that offers in body scans. The one near me does it for like $30 a pop. You can do it as often as you want because it's just electrical signals, or a DEXA. But
DEXA is low level radiation.
I would say not as frequently, like maybe right when you start, and then the next year, and then maybe in body scans in between might work.
Yeah, I mean, and you can do what's the other one? Bod pods.
Oh, I haven't done that one. I'm not actually sure what it is.
My husband knows what a bod pod is. They have them. The military does them. So instead of doing DEXAs, a lot of the wellness centers for soldiers on big army posts, they will have a bod pod, and it is different. And instead of doing water displacement,
Mm-hmm.
which is the most accurate. It is air displacement.
Oh,
So it's
interesting.
so they do some really cool stuff. And so what's the longest fast you've done?
Oh, in general, the longest fast I've ever done was 2 weeks. So 14
Good Lord.
days. That
That's
was a water
crazy.
fast. I shouldn't have done that. I didn't, not because fasting for 2 weeks is necessarily bad, but because I didn't realize at the time that I have lipedema. So I thought I was fatter than I actually was. And so I didn't have as much energy on my body to support that fast for as long as it went on. So, the second longest I've done I've done 1 week long fast. That was when I was actually heavier and it was mostly just boring. I've done a whole bunch of 72s and stuff. At this point, with my normalized waist size, and not a ton of actually healthy, accessible fat left, I feel best between 36 and 48 hours. I tried to do a ketone fast of 60 hours and I just didn't feel good past 48 hours. So I was like, I'm not doing that again.
The longest I've gone is 36 hours. And that was when I first started in the first couple of years of keto back in like 2018, 2019. I was like, I'm going to try to do a fast. I made it 36 hours. I was like, bump this.
Yeah.
No.
Fasting, I would say, is not necessary for the vast majority of people. I just find that on top of really well handled nutrition and ketogenic eating, that fasting helps a lot with the swelling that I get. So that's why I'm including it. If I didn't have a lymphatic disorder, lipedema, I wouldn't bother.
I think the intermittent fasting is ideal, that everybody should have a shortened eating window because of keeping insulin down. However, I don't think that everybody needs to do like over 24-hour fasts like all the time. So. I think it just depends on your body.
Yeah, I think if you can comfortably do it and you feel really good when doing it, awesome. If you try it and it doesn't feel good, don't.
Yeah, don't. Phil Thompson saying that the bod pod is definitely air displacement, and you basically sit on an egg or sit in an egg.
Oh, okay, so it's like a thing,
like an egg. Yeah. Cool. So this one says, I read recently that once ketones are over 1.5, you're in a good solid state of ketosis and not many other changes for going higher. I think that may have been in the context of weight loss. I think, who was it? Who the heck was it that was talking about studies and that it was the higher the ketones, the greater the weight loss. Maybe it was either Ben Bickman. It was one of the science people. And so I think it was either Ben or Nick. Do you know?
Yeah, and that's like, it's kind of difficult because it's hard to say, like,
is it the chicken or the egg too?
Yeah, exactly. Because if you're losing weight, you're necessarily burning fat, presumably. Like, you're not losing.
If you're on a ketogenic diet, you're most likely.
Yeah, if you're on a ketogenic diet and you're rapidly losing weight, most of what you're losing is probably going to be fat with some water. And the more weight you lose, the more fat you're burning. And so it may just be reflecting, like the higher ketone level is just reflecting that you're losing a lot of fat. But it could also be that the environment that you're in that's causing that high ketones is beneficial for weight loss. I could believe that too. Or it could be that higher ketones signals something that's helping promote weight loss. Maybe that too.
Like in the case with the bioidenticals, like it's saying, hey, we need more. So they're in signaling. No, this is just a hypothesis. We're just kind of making a guess at that. It's not, there's no science to that.
Yeah. There are plenty, like, again, it just depends on what you're dealing with. With weight loss, I think therapeutic ketosis can be very beneficial. When I was losing weight, my noon ketones were at 5, just resting at 5 because I was losing weight so rapidly,
So
or
rapidly, wow.
any of the other things that might have been going on. But again, like we talked about with kidney disease, improved EGFR, so kidney function was correlating with higher BHB. With lymphedema, it was correlating with higher BHB. With bipolar disorder, I believe it was correlating with higher BHB for feelings of wellness. For myself, I feel much better at 4 than I do at 2, but some people don't feel good at 4 at all and feel much better around 1.5 or 2. So I think it depends on the conditions that you're dealing with. And again, if they respond to deeper ketosis, or if it doesn't really matter, as long as you're eating okay. There are other things like in mouse studies, when they got the mice up to 3 millimoles, which they had to supplement them for this because rats don't do ketosis very well. But they found that it reversed some obesity-related fibrosis within the fat, which meant it kind of took away this callousing that was there that may impede weight loss. So maybe that's why the higher BHB. So we don't know if that happens in humans. We do know that certain types, like rapid fat gain, can result in fibrosis of the fat tissue because the fat essentially outgrows the vasculature and becomes hypoxic and then becomes fibrotic as a response to that. We don't know about ketones having an impact on reversing that. But if that is the case, it may actually be true that deeper ketosis for people with that issue may be beneficial for weight loss. So,
I mean, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So it depends. There's a lot we don't know. But if you feel really good at 1.5, you're getting the results that you want. You have no complaints. It's just a matter of waiting for things to resolve. I would not worry about it. I would say it's more a case of you're at 1.5, you've improved, but it's kind of stalled out, and you feel like there's more that could improve. You're not quite getting there. I would say maybe experiment with deeper ketosis and see if that's a factor. But it could also be something else too. It could be any number of things.
Yeah, that's interesting. If anybody's got any more questions, feel free to put them in the comments, because we're a little bit over an hour here, and I know that everybody's got lots of things to do. If you guys get a chance, info on a fat fast would be great.
Yeah, so I think you said you haven't done much fat fasting. So
no, I've always wanted to try it because it sounds, I don't know, interesting.
Yeah, it feels very decadent. It can anyway, because you're eating just a load of fat. Yeah, so generally what I do when I fat fast is I'm basically just eating enough fat to maintain my normal energy levels. So I've made my pickled pork fat recipe, which is a raw pork fat that's in a vinegar brine. It tastes kind of like applesauce because of how I make it. So I've eaten that to get my fat source in. Roasted bone marrow I've done. I've made like a hollandaise with a little bit of cinnamon in it and eaten that. Hollandaise is just egg yolk and butter emulsified together. I would also do a lot of things like I'd take chocolate flavored electrolytes and then add butter and emulsify it with a stick blender until it got really creamy. So I'd have like a hot cocoa. Or I would do the same thing with coffee. So just emulsifying butter in. So yeah, and basically it would just range between like 600 to 1200 calories of pure fat. I would say it can be a little bit tedious, especially if you don't like eating certain forms of fat. And I know someone else in the Keto AF Facebook group who was doing fat fasting, but maintaining her normal caloric levels. So it was like 2,000 calories of nearly pure fat for her fat fasting. And she saw benefits in terms of hormonal regulation and stuff like that.
Yeah, so. I was wondering about that because so I did an experiment, and this is not a ketone experiment, by the way, where I did 5 days of a protein sparing modified fast type diet, and I did 5 days. 150 grams of protein, 30 grams of fat. And so it was like 800 calories. And, I was like, I'd like to flip that and be like, and see what the difference is. Cause I won't lie. I felt really good, but I was starving the entire time. Does that make sense? It doesn't,
For
to
sure.
me, it's like, why do I feel great, but I'm so hungry? Like I just want to eat. And Rob Goodwin was like, girl, eat. I'm like, okay, I'll go eat. So, but I'd like to flip the fat fast and see,
if there's a difference. I think it's a
if
good
there's a
side-by-side comparison just to see, do you still feel great but you're not hungry? Because that's a big reason I was doing it, is like once I got down to a lower weight, I wasn't as easily able to water fast anymore. Like I would just get so hungry and so like foggy brained and unable to concentrate, just constantly thinking about food. And when I did fat fasting, all of that went away and I didn't feel fatigued. I was sleeping really great. So I think it's just fun to experiment with. Like that, I just like trying different things and then seeing, like I've done high protein, I've done high fat, I've done ketone fasting, I've done fat fasting, I've done water fasting, I've done a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah. Kelly Hogan apparently does a lot of it.
Yes, Kelly Hogan is awesome. Would recommend.
Yeah, I'll have to go and look her. I mean, I know who she is, and I do watch her stuff. I'm going to have to go look up her fat fasting stuff.
Yeah, I know she experimented with it for a little while. I don't know if she still does it, but I think she saw some pretty good benefits.
It says that she does it weekly.
Oh, cool.
She might be doing
I didn't even read what's right in front of my face, but yeah.
No, you're good. Kelly, 2,500 calories. But I will say this. So I want to caveat a lot of what we're talking about, especially in the influencer community. You see people like Kelly Hogan, Bella Ma, and Elle, who is Anthony Chafee's fiance. They are uber skinny, uber thin, and they eat extremely high amounts of fat and calories. And that is not 100% the norm. And I don't want people to feel like discouraged when they don't get those results, because every person is completely different. And that is just that's what works for them. And that's where their metabolism is. And I see so many people get discouraged because I'm not thin like this person. I don't look like I'm not getting the results of this person. Vitamin P for patience, vitamin G for gratitude, and and just kind of like realize that you're not going to be them. And I'm guilty of this, and my husband will tell you. I'm like, man, why does it work for them and it doesn't work for me? Because I have thyroid issues, and with thyroid issues comes insulin issues, comes all the issues. So everybody is very different. And so just because Kelly is eating 2,500 plus calories on her fat fasting and not gaining a ton of weight does not mean that you might gain weight. So eat to satiety on your fat fasts. And
I think that's always the key, whether you're fasting or not, is try to find a way to where you can get satiated in the first place, but eat to satiation. And then, because your body is way smarter than you, believe me. But like me, I eat super high fat. I'm doing all this fasting. I eat about 2,400 calories on eating days. I do not look like Kelly Hogan. Wish I did. I do not. But I also have lipedema, and I have a different health context. We're different people. So.
And you're probably doing this for a different reason than what she's doing this for.
Yeah, I have other health issues. I'm well aware of that. However, regardless of what my body looks like, I'm metabolically healthy. Like I still have some things that I need to work on, and that's what I care about most. Like aesthetics, I don't, whatever.
Yeah. So like, and me too, I'm doing this for health reasons. It started out for autoimmune issues, and like my chronic pain is gone. And so that's always spectacular. And I was sharing this with Siobhan before. And of course I'm doing a supplement protocol too for my thyroid, but I finally got my TPO antibodies below 600. That is a big
Yay.
deal because LabCorp here in the state of North Carolina apparently only goes up to 600, and then it just gives you the greater than 600. And so you never know. So finally, this is the first time in years that it has dropped below 600. I have a actual number and not just a theoretical concept out there in the cosmos right now. So which is really great. I'm back to being hypo again, but I'll take it.
It's a process.
It's a process.
It's a process. It's progress. And how many people would say, bringing your thyroid antibodies down is not possible? Like,
oh, so many. And I mean, you look at a lot of us are doing, there's a lot of Hashimoto's people that are doing this, and they're trying to do the antibodies. Just for transparency, the protocol that I'm doing, I'm taking zinc and selenium and myo-inositol, and NAC, which is N-acetylcysteine. It's actually N-acetyl-L-cysteine. But that's a long mouthful. So I'm doing that daily, plus doing intermittent fasting, plus ultra low carb. I am going to start adding back in a little tiny bit of carbs as an experiment to see what happens.
I hope it goes well. I hope you add it in and you feel great. Like, that is my hope for everybody who tries adding in a little bit.
I just want to see, because I haven't since 2018, since I've been doing this. So coming up March will be my 7-year, anniversary for keto. I have not gone off the rails once. Have I eaten too many macadamia nuts? Abso-freaking-lutely.
Happens to the best of us.
Because you can't eat just one. If you can, bless you. And I have eaten sushi twice. But had a bad experience because I ate the soy sauce, and the soy sauce tore me up. Absolutely. Even the pure organic, like only tamari, like no wheat, like soy just does not, I don't do well with soy. So, so I'm going to try to add back in some stuff. I'm going to shock some people. I might do a baked potato that I put back in the refrigerator and let it set overnight and then bring it back out. So then it's 100% resistant starch versus only partial, to see if I react, because I just haven't had any. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. My glucose is probably going to shoot sky high.
Maybe. I mean, the thing with adding carbs is, I would say, a lot of it can come down to, are you eating it on an empty stomach or not? So that's true in healthy and pre-diabetic and diabetic individuals. The food order does matter. So it's going to have more of a glycemic impact if you're eating it on an empty stomach as compared to having your fat and protein first.
Yes.
And then how much metabolic issues do you still have? And then with coming off of keto, there can be some natural glucose intolerance, essentially glucose resistance on the cell level. Yeah. For like the first 3 days. So like when I did the high carb experiment, even my glucose was all over the place the first 3 days, and then it kind of settled down. And that was eating super high carb and not an ideal. Like, if I redid it, I would do it in a completely different way. But if it's like a solitary baked potato at the end of a good healthy meal.
Well, I think what I'm going to do, I'm capping it at 30 grams of carbs. So I'm going to be very diligent on capping it and just seeing, because I've been less than 10, and it's been all mostly animal based or maybe macadamia nut based. Yes. Cause macadamia nuts are just evil. And, I want to just see what happens when I add in that, add in something. It's not going to kill me. I'm trying to not be
not kill you.
Yeah, I'm going to try to not be dogmatic and be like, it's going to kill me. No, it's not going to kill me. I'm going to be
at worst, like, it won't make you feel your best, and then you'll be like, well, now I know.
Well,
It's
now
not a
I
big
know.
deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, shoot, there are ketogenic foods that I eat that I'm like, yeah, I feel like crap now.
Yeah, that's true. And there are some people who, like I said, have gone super high carb off of keto and they felt fine. Not necessarily something I would recommend for people with existing health conditions,
No,
but
not for autoimmune.
once you're metabolically healthy, in some cases you do have that level of flexibility, and it's really not that big a deal.
Well, I think the goal, yes, Dennis, they are absolute. That deserves a showing. So I think so. The goal is to see if it affects my hormones. I'm looking specifically at how it's going to affect my thyroid hormones and see if there's a difference.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah, in terms of macadamia nuts, there's a brand that I came across at a conference once that does an actually pretty clean chocolate covered macadamia nut. Those are like you buy like one tiny bag like every once in a while.
Which one? Which brand is that one?
House of Macadamia.
Okay. I love House of Macadamia, but I'm going to complain.
Okay, go for it.
So they're a very small company.
Mm-hmm.
And recently they decided that they were going to also start selling on Amazon.
Okay.
So if you order from their website, there's sometimes they are completely sold out of everything. And it took me forever to finally resolve the fact that I had not got my order. It took me months.
Oh, that sucks.
So as now, and that's great. And I can tell you why this is happening. It's because of a certain PhD med student.
It caused a surge in their orders.
Yes. And so they do have the best macadamia nut oil on the planet.
I haven't tried the macadamia nut oil. I've tried their macadamia nuts. They actually stock them at a gas station nearby. They have like the little packets. And then I've also seen them at King Soopers, which I think is also Kroger elsewhere in the country. So I've seen them there. I found their chocolate covered macadamia nuts at Kroger. I was like, I could like pick up a bag when I get my groceries sometimes. I did not do that, but
no, they're macadamia nuts. So there's one on Amazon I was buying, and I was like, man, it just kind of tastes a little funky. And I was like, I got a bottle with my House of Macadamia nut stuff the first time I had ordered them, and the flavor was just so perfect. It was buttery.
Ooh, I like butter.
Yeah. But the flavor was just like that, like the flavor of a macadamia of the aftertaste of macadamia. So it was like very clean, very crisp, very buttery. That was great. And so now I'm ruined. So no macadamia nut oil.
Any other kind.
No. And I'll make a dressing with it, mix it with chosen food mayo and whip it together and make a salad dressing out of that. Yes, I still do eat crunchy water with glyphosate. Although I try to get organic, hoping to not eat as much glyphosate.
You know, the world that we live in where someone apologizes for eating a salad, it's like, yes, I do cheat occasionally. I eat lettuce.
I eat lettuce and I eat zucchini because they don't bother me. I have to limit legumes. So I can eat green beans on occasion. I can't eat a lot of them, but I can eat them on occasion. I can eat zucchini until the cows come home, apparently. It'll throw me out of ketosis if I eat too many, but I can eat them. And I don't have like the joint aches and swelling. I can eat the occasional tomato product, occasional. And it's like, I can't eat it days in a row. I can't eat dairy most of the time. Most dairy except for butter. It's evil.
Yeah. Yeah, I have found that after a while on carnivore, I was able to add plants back in. I would say I mostly eat like macadamia nuts occasionally, buying the small bags. and sometimes like some tomato sauce, or once the farmer's market is open, I'll get like a tomato once a week because they have the
Yeah.
heritage breed ones. Some
Yeah.
onion. I can add
You're in a
like
good
leafy
place for
greens.
that. You're in a really
Yeah,
good place for that right where you live, though.
yeah. Um, and I can add leafy greens back. The only thing is I don't like them very much, and they're expensive.
I
It's more
can.
expensive than eating carnivores. So it's like,
It is. Well, I will say that I can't do um the salad greens, like the spring mix.
mm-hmm,
It tears up my stomach. I can only do romaine
mm-hmm.
and butter lettuce. If you've heard of,
Yeah, yeah.
those are the only ones that I can really do that doesn't like tear my stomach up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I haven't been carnivore since last year, but someone proposed to me maybe we should do like a return to carnivore in January just to see if it makes any difference. And it's like,
Mm.
yeah, I could do that.
Well,
I
that's
might
it.
have fun with that.
It's always beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. Just go the Dr. Berry route. I mean, it is the
Yeah,
simplest. That's how I
yeah,
started. It'll be a year. I can't believe it'll be a year that, I started carnivore. We're still hyper carnivores. If you were eating,
yeah. Like
if
that's
you
the
were,
thing. 90% of what I'm eating is animal based already.
see,
It's
you're
just like
carnivore.
some keto bricks, some keto chow, condiments, and occasional like onion and tomato, which is
I
not a
eat
whole
it.
ton.
I very rarely do I do onion and it's in something because I don't like onions. I like it
Yeah,
flavoring stuff sometimes.
I really like onions. I just can't eat a ton of them.
Yeah. So any future experiments coming up?
Well, I just mentioned one, the return
A
to
carnivore.
carnivore experiment,
Hmm.
to see. I don't know if I prefer it. I'm pretty close to carnivore right now, so it's not a huge change. I just haven't been carnivore in a while, so I'm kind of curious about it. Other than that, I'm going to continue my ketone fasting because
Hmm.
I've been having really good results with it. I've been feeling really good. And usually by this point in fat fasting, doing the rolling fasts, where I just do a fast and then refeed and then do a fast and then refeed over and over again,
Hmm.
I would have stopped by this point because it's usually after like a month or two. It's like, I kind of want to take a break now.
Hmm.
But I'm still feeling really good, so I'm just going to continue it. And yeah, I think that's all I've got for now. But yeah, just
All
seeing
right.
where it goes.
Well, we're at an hour and 25. We could talk forever. I know that
Oh,
we
yeah.
could. One time, I know sometime we're going to have to do that and just be like, we're going to do a 24-hour, just like
24-hour live
just
stream. We could
a
raise
24.
charity, right? Like we
Oh,
could.
well, we could. Anything exciting coming up for you?
I am going to be attending COSI.
I know.
So
Dave asked me if I was coming, and I was like, I can't because of school.
yeah, yeah, I will be going to that. So I'll be hanging out with a bunch of people there.
Yep.
Other than that, Lipedema Simplified has an event that I'll be speaking at in April. So that'll be in
Oh, that's so
mid-April.
cool. Yep.
Yeah, and that's an online event, so anybody all over the world can attend. We'll be talking a lot about lipedema surgery, so lipedema reduction surgery, but then also all of the holistic stuff that goes around that, preparing mentally, making sure nutrition is on point, all the conservative therapies. And then also in terms of surgery, there's a gajillion things to think about in terms of what surgeon, what questions should you be asking, are you actually a good candidate for it? Why would you want surgery? Why would you maybe not want surgery? So I think that'll be super interesting. I always like our events, which
Yeah.
I'm biased, but I do enjoy them.
Well, that's understandable.
Yeah, so those are the two main things. And I'm always hanging out on Twitter and posting and chatting with people and
Yeah,
all
I was
that
going to
good
say
stuff.
that's the best place to find you is out over on Twitter.
Yeah.
The X.
I still like the name Twitter. I think if they had named it something like X Chat or like X something like SpaceX, I like the name of SpaceX, but just X. No, I'll go with X Twitter.
X Twitter. So the only I was going to say the only exciting thing coming up. I do have exciting video with Rob Goodwin coming up. I have to upload, and was super excited to get a call from Dave Feldman. Yay. So we were able to pin down a date. So January the 7th, Dave Feldman is going to be on my channel, and we will be talking about being a citizen scientist, not about cholesterol. So don't come with your cholesterol questions. Come with how can I get involved in science questions, because that's what we are going to be talking about.
Yes. So everybody mark your calendars, because Dave is always awesome. January 7th, bring your citizen science questions and go hang out with Dave. And then if you do have cholesterol questions, do come to COSI, because that is also where the world premiere of the Cholesterol Code documentary is going to be. And that is all about cholesterol. So,
yeah. And Dennis, if you look in the PhD community, if you don't know about the PhD community, I'll put that up to the banner for that. If you look in the PhD community, Dennis, I've already tagged it in there, so people can do that. So also, and Siobhan, you can stick around while I play this little promo. I have a little promo on the way out with a banner that's going to, you should be able to see it from the backstage. So me and her are going to head on off here. And then I got a short little video from one of my good buddies that sent me this for everybody to see. And we'll do this again, and we'll see you guys next time.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right. Bye guys.
Currently watching one of my favorite YouTube channels. So great job. But if you need just a little bit more inspiration on your healing journey, we have a new membership site that I'm excited to share with the world. It is at healinghumanity.life. There is a link with a special promo code offer in the description below. At our membership site, you can be inspired to find a path to healing. We have courses that you can take at your own pace. We have an amazing community. We do multiple Zoom calls per week. We even bring in the good doctors, experts for your Q&As. Most of all, we have an amazing community that's here to support you, keep you motivated, and keep you inspired. Learn more at the link in the description below, healinghumanity.life.